All right. What's up, everybody? This is live. I gotta tell you, I love the live streaming part of it, man. It's a little bit more nerve-wracking, but I kind of feel like it's got the same vibe, the webinar vibe. What's up, Kallon?
Hey, thanks for having me, James. Yeah, great to be live with you. It's first time round for me, so hopefully no blunders.
No, no worries. We have a whole blooper reel that we'll add you to if something bad
Sweet.
happens. Hey, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for joining us from across the pond. Everybody, I'd like to introduce you to somebody. This is Kallon Mountain. That's a hell of a name. I feel like just the name alone, there's mad expectations because Mountain is such a powerful name. Welcome to the show, my friend.
No, I appreciate it. Really excited to be here, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Welcome to the next episode of Surviving Sales. Kallon is with Launched. So this is an interesting conversation because Kallon spends his time selling Amazon management services, everything from advertising to promotion to placement. Kallon spends all his time showing brands how to get the most out of their Amazon experience with a little bit less of the madness and the jungle that sometimes comes along with this. You've heard this before because we've had somebody on the show that does Amazon services before. So products and brands on Amazon, they don't just sell themselves. I think sometimes end users of Amazon that swipe right, we have this impression that like that's the whole thing. You just put it on Amazon and it'll sell. But it actually does take a human being pulling the levers, making the right things happen, being the right places at the right time. And Kallon is that human being. What's going on, my man? Real quick, just tell everybody about Launched and what it is you do every day.
Cool. So, Launched is a full-service Amazon management agency. Covers, like I said, literally everything so that brands can sell on Amazon but have none of the jungle, the headachy side of stuff. And really, day to day for me, responsible for the outbound sales kind of thing for Launched. Not so much the technical ins and outs of Amazon. That's where the founder and the account management team would work. But for myself here, it's really about finding, how do brands make Amazon work for themselves?
And that's the challenge, right? We're all after, I think, and let's just before we get into the questions, because I have a lot of questions around it, but before we get into questions, I feel like our culture has gotten to a point where we are all looking for, and I'm going to put the label, passive revenue opportunities. And Amazon, when it first hit the scene, I remember people were so skeptical about them moving away from just doing books. They're like, oh, I don't know if anybody's going to go get their groceries from there. Well, look what happened from that, right? And then they were like, I don't know if anybody's going to buy their kids' Christmas presents from there. Can you imagine not buying things on Amazon in the Christmas season? I can't even imagine what that would look like now without it. But I remember when people looked at it like skepticism, and now I think people are looking at it the complete opposite way. They think, oh, it's easy, but it's not easy, is it?
100%, exactly. And like I said, Amazon's so ingrained with like modern life nowadays. You've got everything from like the IT part of Amazon all the way through to, like you said, just getting your shopping done. It's just everywhere.
Yeah. The shipping and the logistics problem, probably the biggest hurdle right now, but I think it's coming back to normal. Let's talk about some nuances, because I always like to talk about the nuances in selling in the verticals that we sell into. What is a nuance that selling to Amazon brands in your world would be different than any other vertical? No one would ever have to deal with that.
So for us, really the main focus is kind of considering the brand that you're selling to, but also their customer. So sometimes brands might not be 100% clear why people would buy from them on a marketplace like Amazon, even though they are 100% crystal clear why they would buy from the direct-to-consumer website. So that's kind of where the main difference is for us. So we have to find what's beyond the surface level reason for these brands and what makes our prospect, that brand, what makes their customers' buying experience better. And then how does our solution kind of fit into that?
How did you get to this point where this was something you wanted to do with your day-to-day? Because I know you've got sales experience, but landing in the backyard of Amazon seems like something that would be daunting for a lot of folks. So how'd you get where you're at now?
So basically, like I said, I've been here, there, and everywhere in terms of sales roles. But for me, I saw the Amazon opportunity. I thought a year ago, I thought the Amazon thing was burnt out completely.
You did.
But I saw the opportunity and I was like, look, brands are actually, there's a massive push from Amazon's point of view now. They want a lot more brands in. and they want brands to have a vendor relationship with them rather than like a 3P relationship. So rather than using Amazon as just that platform, Amazon wants brands now to actually jump in and be involved directly with Amazon so they can buy from them. And I figured, right, if they're pushing that, then they're pushing the B2B angle as well as business consumer. The ceiling is way higher than I first thought it was. So that was kind of what pulled me into Amazon in the first instance. I've got an interest in selling managed services as well as SaaS, but it was really that, oh wow, there's extra potential here that I didn't even know there was.
And do you do work with both large organizations and individuals that are entrepreneurs running their own business? Is it for you? Is it anybody and everybody that's in the Amazon community, or is there a specific person you help?
So for us, there's really two sweet spots. Like I said, we do work with everyone across that whole spectrum. But sweet spot number one would be brands with like really good potential that are pre-launch, that have never dealt with Amazon, that don't really have any presence, I guess, across the whole e-commerce environment. So whether it's Amazon, eBay, OnBuy, other marketplaces, and their own website. So sweet spot one is brands that are pre-launch, but they've got great potential. Sweet spot two is that large household name vendor that everybody knows. They do hundreds of millions a year, but there's old ways of thinking within those types of businesses that we can help them move into, I guess, a more modern world.
When you have people moving into the modern world, there's probably a lot of risk factor involved in the mind of these people.
Yeah.
We deal with a lot of objection throughout sales, right? It seems inevitable. No matter what you're doing, you're going to deal with a lot of objection at some point through the sales cycle.
Yeah.
Companies that have a website, they don't have a lot of traffic. They see the big Amazon monster and it's very alluring for them, right? They want to be a part of it. How much fear is involved with that shift over?
Massive
Is
fear.
that a big hurdle for you? You got to convince people that not to be afraid?
Sometimes it can be, but I think if we had to convince, it would be a non-starter. It's more kind of like educate and show people that because they may have tried like a copy paste, or it works in retail, let's just copy paste the formula up to the internet, and we tried it didn't work. But if people know enough, I guess that fear kind of dissipates on its own. And it's just, how do we go about showing those people those opportunities? They're not impossible, and remove as much of the risk, like I said, from people's minds.
What's a good thing that you tell people when you're trying to get them to feel more comfortable and feel less risk?
Well, I suppose, what's the worst that could happen, to borrow a line from Dr. Pepper? What's the worst that could happen? Because, you could always look into something, you could explore the idea, you could do all the discovery, and you might find, no, this isn't worth exploring. But if you never look in the first place, you never poke your head outside the cave, you don't know what's out there. So
you feel like that's a good discovery question for sellers? Hey, what's the worst that can happen? I feel like if I said that, I feel like somebody would be like, oh, well, let me tell you my experience in the past with people like you. Right? What's the channel that you think works best in your sales cycle? Some people are phone people, some people are email people. I know you're big on social. The stuff you've been putting out lately has been flames, man. I've really liked your content lately. What's the channel for you that works best for generating new business?
So pure top of funnel sort of awareness and bringing new people into the idea of selling on Amazon, definitely LinkedIn. And there's so many execs there, decision makers that are on LinkedIn at this point in time, that 100% that is the focus for myself, using the Sales Nav license, and for the other people in the business that are kind of like putting out content marketing. And then from a discovery point of view, for us, always the phone, a real life conversation with a human, or like video like this. You can't beat having an actual conversation with people.
Yeah, I think I'm a phone person first. I think that's my first stop. The bad part is the data game is so bad, right? I feel like salespeople everywhere right now that are phone heavy are hitting the phones hard. And, it might take them 50 calls to get 3 or 4 good phone numbers. And that's Man, that's a challenge right now. And then on the flip side of that,
Yeah,
you've got the email problem where you're scanning for emails, you're trying to get emails, and then they're bouncing back, not deliverable, not deliverable. And that person hasn't changed their LinkedIn, they haven't worked at that company for 3 months. The attrition
yeah.
issue is such a big issue. But I'd imagine a lot of your stuff might be inbound. Do you get a lot of inbound, or are you mostly outbound?
We used to be almost exclusively inbound before I joined.
And now,
Then it's kind of shifting now. Interesting point with the phone as well. Like you mentioned, with the phone, some of the numbers can be, for the most part, enablement tools and data providers, they're kind of accurate. But I think the one thing that gets me to either a yes or a no in terms of is this number valid is a quick double tap. So if you ring once, get no answer on a mobile, ring straight back, you either find out that's a definite yes or a definite no.
so I have heard that strategy. I have heard that strategy before, but the personas that I've heard that strategy for have been different. You're calling a persona that has a business and should probably lean into Amazon to expand their business, grow their business, generate more revenue. I'm wondering what the opener is for that persona. So if you were going to cold call me and I was a business owner, what would your opener be?
So for us, we've got founders as one of the personas.
Okay.
We've then got e-commerce directors as another persona. But if I was going to do a straight cold call from now, I go, hey, James, it's Kallon. I've not got too long right now, but are you free for a minute? I promise to keep it brief.
I like that. Yeah, I'm free for a minute.
Sweet.
So that's great.
That's
I
the
like
opener,
that
yeah.
opener. I like, first of all, I like your tone. Your tone is attractive to me as a listener, but then at the same time, it's Kallon, and you didn't mention the company. I love that because when I hear I'm James with the with,
Yeah.
I think when I hear the with, I'm turned off. I don't care about that, but I like that opener.
Cheers.
You posted recently about objection handling, and I love the sentiment that you had on that post. I think we had that post pulled up. Do you know which post I'm referring to?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So talk about that post and why you put it out. If you want to talk about what the context of it, that's totally fine.
Cool. So, I mean, that post, I guess, came from just pure battle scars. So, I must have made somewhere in the region of like 100,000 cold calls since I started in sales. And when I first started, my calls sucked. Pretty harsh lessons, I guess, from those calls. And I hope someone that's hearing this can kind of shortcut that whole experience. But it was really from a curiosity point of view when I started realizing that objections just aren't what we're taught they normally are. So when you first go into like a sales role, people will say, oh, an objection, you've got to overcome it. It's a bad thing. Like, oh, they're all scary. Don't touch them. You've got to try and do this so that a prospect might think that and keep your call alive. And when you come from when you try and overcome an objection from that kind of angle, it's all about you as the seller. And if you're trying to persuade or get something from someone, it's like you're leading people into a trap and there's a motive there and they kind of feel that. And it's almost like combative, like it grates against people and it's an awkward conversation to have.
I feel like the aggression comes out in us.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. Like, why are you saying that, prospect? Like, I'll tell you what, I've got this canned response. Boom. That'll fix that.
Yeah. And I think leaders have a bad habit of handing out canned responses. I think we try to find those silver bullets for our reps. So we say things like, hey, anytime somebody brings this up, this is what you say. And we tell them that, right? And I think trainers, like we're guilty of it too, right? Here's the thing. I can tell you what to say, but when you say it, it's not going to sound like it sounds when I say it. So you got to take what people say, you got to say this. You have to make that your own. And I think in your business, the authenticity has to come through because people are putting their trust in you and it's their business. Or if you're talking to an e-commerce expert, like you mentioned before, and they're part of a company, the decision to go with you and invest in Amazon through you and your services, they're going to be held responsible for that. It's not going to come to you. It's going to come to them.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you have to make them an ally first? That has to happen first.
Oh, definitely. And those canned responses can be kind of helpful, I guess, for people that are brand new to sales that don't have any idea what to say. So it can kind of help people on that ladder. But the next rung on the ladder, I guess, is having an understanding of how that framework and that response came to be so that you can then on the fly understand like, well, when this response comes in, the objection is an opportunity to understand someone, and how do I go about keeping that convo alive and understanding that person to then move the conversation forward.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. So can you post the link to the post that you're talking about? Yes, we can. Give me a moment. I will try to track that down. Just give us a second. Or Kallon, if you want to post that in the comments on LinkedIn, that'd be good. While we're doing that, for those of you that read books, Kallon is an avid reader. Kallon, do you have a few books that you recommend that people read so they could improve themselves in this current selling environment?
Yeah, definitely. So top three for me. Number one is not a through and through sales book by any means, but it's actually Civilization and Its Discontents by Freud. There's a very short version of this, which actually I've got here. So this was released by Penguin. It's like a little mini version of this Great Ideas series. And that really speaks to the general thought that people are kind of unhappy with civilization, and the things we do day to day, don't really motivate people. And for a salesperson, if you can understand that and the psychology behind like what makes people feel better, what drives people to do things, what the motivations behind people's decisions, that really helped me out. Then the other two are SalesWorks. So Sales EQ by Blount, really good one in terms of how do you actually go about bringing empathy to the table and understanding people again. And book number 3, in fact, I've got them both here. So that's Sales EQ. And then Naked Sales, that's another really good one. So 3 big ones, I guess, all on understanding, empathy, and discovery.
Those are good books. The book I'll recommend is Larry Levine's Selling from the Heart. This is about authenticity and being yourself in your sales process. So that's 4 good books. Larry will actually be on Surviving Sales very soon. So keep an eye out. You'll want to join that one. Okay. Great books to recommend. I always say that, and Morgan was big on this when he was here. He used to always talk about reading psychology books and putting them in the context of sales. So I love that you recommended Freud there. You've been in sales a while. You've been in and out of the game. You've sold for many different verticals. What's the best piece of advice that you've ever gotten in your career for sales?
100% the same thing that would apply to, same advice that would apply to sports people, which is detach yourself as much as possible from the outcome. So sometimes, it could sound a bit buzzwordy, it could sound a bit cliche, might even just sound totally ridiculous because everyone's got targets. But the more you focus on outcomes, if people watch football, for example, the more people would focus on a penalty taker scoring the goal, the more likely they are, that penalty taker, to just absolutely blast it somewhere over there and miss that penalty.
Detach yourself from the outcome seems counterintuitive for a lot of salespeople because let's say, for example, you're an SDR or an account executive. You are compensated for outcomes. That's the measurement. That's the most important measurement, let's say, that you're going to hear about in your one-on-ones and your meetings. What are some techniques, some tactics that you would suggest, or some things that people can do to help remove their attachment to the outcomes?
100%. So the outcome is a byproduct of the process. And if you're an SDR looking to book meetings, for example, the outcome is you want the meetings booked. You might have like 10 a month that you need to hit your number, but you can't control whether 10 prospects are in the right frame of mind or the right sort of stage of exploration to book those meetings with you. So the only things you can control in your process are the number of people that you speak with, how your conversations go, the kind of questions you ask, all these different pieces of the puzzle that add up that eventually result in that outcome. But you can't say like, oh, prospect number 9, you must attend because I have an outcome. The only thing you can do is find more people and focus on those levers that you can pull. And eventually the outcome takes care of itself, providing you put in the work.
Yeah. Constant prospecting will often save you from having to be too attached to the outcome. And I love what you talked there about control. We always give this acronym out. It's EAT, EAT. And this comes from Charlotte. This is John's daughter. We can only control 3 things in our lives. We can control our effort, our attitude, and how we treat other people. That's the only thing that we can control. Everything else is circumstantial, happenstance. It's a product of its environment. It's out of our hands, right? The decision is not ultimately yours. It's your prospects. If you're convincing and persuading, you're doing it wrong. That's not the way to do it, right? Oftentimes that will lead to a failed long-term experience for your client. So everybody has sales heroes, right? John and Morgan have been heroes of mine for a long time. You mentioned Jeb Blunt. I've looked up to Jeb Blunt for a while. Anthony Iannarino, great guy to look up to. Mark Hunter, all these great sales gurus out there that we all look up to. Who are your influences?
Oh, well, the JB team. I was a bit fanboy mode when I found out it's coming on here, so a lot of my learnings come from you guys. For people across the LinkedIn community, there's Marcus Chan, Devin Reed, Morgan, Josh Braun. I think salespeople nowadays are all super lucky to have so many people within the sales community and so many experts that are willing to just give away all their learnings so that everyone else can level up. I think we're absolutely just blessed at the moment as salespeople.
And if you had like a celebrity, an actor, somebody that you looked up to outside of the sales space, who's your go-to?
So for me, I'm drawn to like humble sports people and down to earth, just relaxed, process focused and professional athletes. So Thierry Henry, when I was growing up, my dad was a Liverpool fan. Thierry Henry played for Arsenal, so he wasn't too impressed when I thought Thierry Henry's a role model. But French Player of the Year 5 times, and I always remember in interviews just being like such like a respectable guy. It just kind of stuck with me. So Thierry Henry is definitely on the list.
Yeah. For me, I think outside of sales, talking heads out there that I look up to, and there are so many that I could mention. I really look up to Steve Harvey. I think Steve Harvey is a guy that I would want to be like. I like his outlook, his mentality. He comes from no education. Everybody doubted him, right? I look up to those types of people, the underdogs, right? I always, because I'm an underdog. It was very unlikely that I would be successful. All right. So when did you know that sales was what you wanted to do? Like we've talked about, you've been through a lot in the sales space. And right now you've landed in the Amazon world, which is a great place to be. But when did you know you were like, this is what I want to do?
Well, I was kind of similar, I guess. Another salesperson who kind of fell into the profession, no formal education, not very much on, if people were on like yearbooks, it'd be like most likely to be a comedian, I was like most likely to be in the bin. Not much hope, but I worked a number of temp jobs in all sorts of different departments, from like complaints teams to like inbound customer service, and I always had an eye for like picking out business problems and thinking like, oh, well, why isn't that way? And like that could definitely be better. And looking at processes and thinking, why doesn't someone just do that? So I probably sound like a bit of a Grinch at the time, but that was when I realized that outbound salespeople were the ones that were fixing these problems, and I knew I could do something worthwhile if I was in sales. So that's kind of what drew me in, I guess.
Yeah. When you were a kid, were you a big personality in school?
Oh no. Massive
Quiet,
introvert.
reserved.
Yeah, 100%.
Really?
Quiet, reserved. Still am in a way, like massive introvert. So not good with crowds. I'm amazed I've not passed out on this, to be honest.
No, that's funny, man. I was a terror as a kid. For shout out to all my high school teachers that had to put up with me. But then like I learned to channel it. So how many reps do you work with now? Do you have other reps that you're working with? You said you mentioned you run an outbound team, right?
Yep. So just the one, and then we've got the account management team that they work with renewals and upsells. So that's where for the last couple of weeks a lot of the focus has been.
Okay, so talk to me about how the renewal and upsells game is going. What kind of skill sets are you training them on right now?
Well, there was a really interesting seminar? Well, big speech thing
Sure.
that I'd seen a while back, and it was a number of different founders delivering like product demos, and it really stuck with me because people that are capable of being a founder and a technical founder like that, they're really, really good at identifying the systems and problems to solve something, but not so much the sales part of that and explaining it to a customer. And I think a lot of those skills that technical founders have cross over into like the account management world, where from a technical point of view, everything's 100%, but from a sales point of view, it's like, how do you get that message across to someone? So that's one thing that we're really working on, is the account management team have the keys to the kingdom for almost every single salesperson. They just don't necessarily know how to unlock that door. So that's what we're working on.
That's a good skill to have. Meg Holsinger, our customer success director, is probably the best customer success director I've ever seen. And her renewal and her referral game are like on point. She does those really, really well. So share that with your account management team for sure. Like renewals and referrals are a huge part of the game. If you can get a focus on that, you're doing great. I noticed you had mentioned that you were in the same boat as Steve Harvey, right? No education really. And you don't have a college degree. Did you go to college? Did you consider college? Did you think that college was a waste of time? What was that experience like?
I did all three of those things. So
all three covered.
But you're right, no degree, nothing formal on paper. I went for I did the first year studying sports science, and that was a three-year deal. I did year one and then just dropped out. I already had a personal training diploma that basically this 3-year course was leading me into. So I was kind of scratching my head like £9,000 for year one. Like, do I really want to keep spending this amount of money?
Right.
Yeah. Which, if I was going to stick in that world and be a sports trainer of some sort, then I would have needed a degree. In all fairness, to get into big clubs. But formal education has just never been one for me. Like, I've always been a curious person, but I've never liked having to go through jump those hoops to have that piece of paper. Nothing wrong with that for other people.
Yeah, it just goes to show you how many people can be successful in sales. And it takes a lot of grit. It takes determination. It takes consistency, effort, curiosity that you mentioned, right? It takes all those things. But it's something that everyone can be successful at if they work hard at it and they perfect the things that matter most to their development and the things they need to perfect. It's like an open-mindedness. How did that go for you? How did you figure out, like, hey, I could work on this and I could work on that? Were you open-minded the whole time, or were you one of those people that were like, I'm just going to keep doing my thing, I don't need help?
Oh no, I've always asked a ton of questions.
A ton of curiosity.
I've always been like one to kind of deconstruct everything and like, why has that happened that way? Like, why has this happened? Like, replay things in my mind, just constantly asking questions. I mean, my partner, she hates me for it. It's like, why won't you just be quiet?
Hey, are you always this way? My wife will say things like, if you could be anyone else but you while we're at this party, that would be great.
It's a familiar phrase I've heard.
So I talk a lot about parents and our past and the things. How did the lessons that your parents give you shape who you are today as a professional?
Interesting question. I think a lot of people, without being asked that, might not necessarily reflect on it. But I was always taught work hard, play hard growing up, and do the studying, put in all the hours, and the rewards come after that. Which 100% is true for a lot of cases.
Sure.
But for myself, it was a combo of that and the value that was placed on education that played into that nature as a curious person, and didn't exactly fit into the general education system's way of doing things, because I just couldn't plug into that world. But it really motivated me to continue my learning on my own, uncover what do I want to do, and where are my strengths, weaknesses, what might I be good at in the future. And I guess that's what pushed me again into the sales roles, and that desire to keep learning and be a curious person.
Our parents shared so many things with us, and I don't think we often give them enough credit for the characteristics that we inherit from them. So one of your parents, whoever the curious one is, thanks. All right. What's the best way for people to reach out to you? How do you like to be connected with?
So for me, being in sales and being a little bit cheeky, from an SEO point of view, I thought this would be nice. LinkedIn for me, 100% the best place to reach me. I'm there all the time. LinkedIn.com/in/sales tips. I got there early.
Yeah, you did.
And Kallon Mountain, Kallon. So if anyone wants to connect with me,
it's not /sales tips 49678.
Nope.
That's great. That's great. Well, hey, man, I want to say thank you very much for coming and sharing your wisdom with our people. A lot of people spend their lunch with us here, and it's great that you were able to be a part of this. I appreciate all your wisdom and your energy. I don't know why you're so shy. You certainly shouldn't be. You did really well on this. For those of you that came to this show, thank you for investing in yourself and coming to learn how you can survive sales. Remember that you are the tip of the spear, the person that matters most to your prospect. So stay with the game. Focus on what you need to focus. You can be a survivor, just like Kallon, just like myself, and all the other sales talking heads out there that we all look up to every single day. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Surviving Sales. We will see everybody next week when we bring you Lisa Fisher. Lisa Fisher, who does government contracts and all types of contract work. You want to be there if you write complicated contracts. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great weekend. Thanks, Kallon.
Cheers. Thanks for having me. See you guys.